You know, I'm very connected with Nat and the base services. You know, it takes about 6 different services in order for someone to leave homelessness. When someone leaves homelessness, there's an average of 6 different services involved in that situation, or involved in that person's life. And actually this week, we were able to help someone. And so that's what I get to do. You know, that's not hard. It's actually extremely motivating. And when we think about things creatively and when we step outside of this normal structure, we're actually able to be so much more effective. Let me talk a little bit about Top Blokes. I worked for Top Blokes for 2.5 years. Top Blokes is an amazing organisation. My job at Top Blokes was the coordinator, but my role was setting up Top Blokes in the Toowoomba region. And Top Blokes is based in Sydney, and I want to tell you a little their story a bit. But they go out within an hour of Toowoomba. I've been and mentored boys in nearly every state high school and some of the Catholic schools within an hour of Toowoomba. That includes Millmerran. I spent a year in Millmerran, which was fantastic. I spent 4 semesters at Pittsworth State High School. I spent 2 terms right here with Mrs. Coonan at Pittsworth State. I love coming out here because your boys are more honest. They tell you what they think. Good or bad.
Good.
But you know, and I just want to reiterate what Brett said. I could stand here and say to you right now, our boys are in trouble, but I don't want to do that. What I want to say is that our boys need help. Our boys across society need help, and a lot of it's about identity. A big part of mentoring, and I want to encourage every older male here in particular, help your boys find identity, because that's a lot of the time where they're struggling. They're struggling with those things. But Top Blokes was started by a lady named which I think is amazing, named Melissa Abu Ghazala. So she was based in Sydney, and what she saw is when she was in high school, she saw that there was a lot of mental health support, and there was more support for women than men in her school. And so she started the Top Blokes Foundation, and she was mentored by many people. And now Top Blokes is in schools all over New South Wales, in Queensland, in Toowoomba region, Sunny Coast, Brisbane, Ipswich and Gold Coast. And it impacts, I'm sorry I don't have my stats with me, but it impacts blokes and it helps them move forward. And it talks about all sorts of topics. In the high school, it goes for 16 weeks, so it goes for a whole term. So we were with the same group of boys for 16 weeks. And you know, in 16 weeks, we talked about every topic that impacts boys. There's no stone left unturned, because they learn to trust us, they learn to see that we have their best interest at heart, and we talk about all the things. We talk directly about DV. We talk directly about respect. We talked directly about the impacts of drugs and alcohol. We talked directly about the impacts of pornography on a young man, on his brain, and on his future relationships. Who knows that young men need a discussion on that? Mm-hmm. And so and we worked with chaplaincy and SU chaplains very closely. It's amazing how much. And Jason Berry, who's a fantastic guy that was at Centenary with Mr. O'Brien, is now the regional guy, and he is fantastic, and he has your children's and grandchildren's their best interest at heart, and so do your chaplains that are able to be here and sit down. So I want to encourage you about supporting Top Blokes. They appreciate. See, I'm still part of it. In my heart, I still belong to it. So I will say, we appreciate that you're able to do that. I know when we, I was going to say this for later, but Carol, I really appreciated Carol's role. Carol worked hard and realised what her boys needed. I tell you, you have an amazing principal of your primary school who believes in your children. I know in the hustle and bustle of school life, sometimes you don't agree with everything the teachers, principals do. That's healthy. But the best thing you can do is get behind them. And I want to talk a little bit about that later. But Top Blokes is amazing. So the third story I want to tell. So Top Blokes was started because someone saw a need and came up with a creative solution. I can't tell you if Melissa was here, I wish she would be, to tell us the random thought that said, oh, I'm a female and maybe I should help blokes and continue to do it. Wouldn't that be a random thought? That would be a very random. And then the third organisation I want to talk about, because I actually had the privilege of being the welfare coordinator for Winter Shelter. Now, for those of you who don't know what Winter Shelter is based in Toowoomba. And the history of Winter Shelter is Helen McGrath worked for Lifeline, and also Rodney Watton worked for Lifeline at the time. Now, Rodney and Helen now actually work out of the Clifton Hospital and are still embedded in our community so much. Excuse me. And they saw a need for homeless people in the city to have somewhere to go in winter. Who knows it's freezing cold in winter when that westerly blows? Could you imagine being homeless? In fact, when I especially when I was doing winter shelter, I would go home. I would almost feel guilty for going home. And I would go to my warm bed in my warm house, and I would think of the homeless people that are actually sleeping outside in the breeze. And they find their place to a corner, but you know that's not going to protect them very much. No. So winter shelter came as a random thought. What resources do we have? Let's approach churches and see if they'll open their doors for the homeless to stay. Hey, that's a great idea. So this year I got to help homeless people stay in churches over the entire winter program. And so they come to the church, they get fed, they get a bed, they get fed in the morning, and then they are sent back out. And it is an amazing thing that the community got around it. It is 100% funded. It is 100% manned by the community. Volunteers get in the churches and work. I felt guilty for this too. I was the only person that was paid. Everyone else was a volunteer. Because what happened is people went and did the Kokoda track, and the community donated funds so that they could pay me, so I could bring my profession, bring my strengths to help people. And that is the key. They stepped outside of the system and made something work to benefit people and change the community. And I tell you, from my friend, Calvin, I want to tell you my story about Calvin. Now I have permission to share this story. Calvin had been sleeping next to a bridge in a park for 2 years. Now Calvin had a brain injury from a motorbike accident. And Calvin had Centrelink, and he had no DSP, so disability support pension. And the part of his brain that was damaged in his motorbike accident affected his short-term memory. So he would have his phone or his wallet, he'd be sitting at a table, even if he got up, he'd forget what he was doing and leave his stuff behind. So he had no ID. And without ID, it's very hard to engage with Centrelink. It's very hard to move forward. He didn't have the ability, but because of winter shelter, because of my role, I was able to walk alongside him and help him manage those things and do those things. And I tell you, I hung out with Calvin yesterday. So he's, you know the thing we talk about connection? I went to school with Calvin. He was friends with my brother. And now he's homeless with a brain injury. Yesterday, about 6 weeks ago, after winter shelter, I was able to help him get supported accommodation. I was able to help him get DSP. He is 1 week off getting an NDIS package because he should have had one. Because he can't remember. He can't remember to take his meds. He can't remember to do lots of things. And so he lives in a house. Before now, he was living under a bridge. He has an DSP, so he's able to get a bit more money to help meet his needs, and he's about to get the care that he needs in order to live the life that he was destined to live. I tell you, that changes his world. And we say to him, we talk about it, we laugh and joke a little about it. He went from the doghouse to the penthouse. And it's amazing that someone had a random thought. No, sorry. No, it's okay, really.
That was your random thought.
Okay, cool. No. Maybe Jesus is sending you a message. So now I lost my random. Anybody lose their random thought? Because someone stepped outside the process, this guy's life has completely changed. And that changes your community, that changes my community. And to me, that's really the key. So I want to finish. I've spent enough time, sorry, Brett. The creative solution for Pittsworth is in this room, right now, because you see needs. The problem sometimes is we see needs and we complain about them. And then we talk to this person about it, and the problem becomes larger. But when we have a creative solution, we talk to people about the need and the creative solution, and the creative solution grows. You see, a creative solution needs a community to grow. It needs a community to come to life, to fruition. And then that's where the impact comes. If I can encourage you one thing, see the need, but don't contribute to the complaint. You were a part of that creative solution. Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit now what I've seen in regards to that. I've known Man Jeff for a while when he was a counsellor, and I've seen, and he probably doesn't even want me to say these things, I've seen him at work. And this is what I've seen. When people come up with a creative solution and are doing the work, this guy, your man, gets behind them and supports them. He uses what he can, but he will speak about you when you're not there. He will help you connect with others when you're not around. And he will do everything that he can. And see, to me, that is so important, and that is the best part of local government. They can get in and support, but if you're waiting for them to have the solution, I'm really sorry. The solution's in this room with you. And tomorrow you have the opportunity to vote. Our democratic right, if you haven't voted already, a third of Australia, of Queensland has, sorry. You have the opportunity to create change or stick with the same. But you know you have the opportunity today to create change. You have the opportunity on Sunday to create change. You don't have to wait 100 days to see if things are going to change. You can create that change now by having a conversation, by taking that random thought and testing it with others.
Yeah, that's right.
To see, hey, what do you think about this? Will this work? Because if we don't test our random thoughts, we get caught in them and then we get in trouble. Who's got into trouble for dwelling on their random thoughts? We all have. I have a great tester of random thoughts. Her name's Ingrid. She couldn't be here this morning because she's actually she's a teacher aide in the primary school as we speak. So what you can do though is this. In between your random thoughts and doing what you do, you can get behind what's happening already here in Pittsworth. You know, get behind Mrs. Coonan. See, Mrs. Coonan's left. Great. Get behind Carol. She's amazing. Get behind Mr. Norris. Mr. Norris, as I said, knew him from Highfields. Get behind Adam Cronin. Crowy. What a fantastic guy, a Pittsworth guy. I tell you, regardless, I imagine that at times, in the hustle bustle of school, as we said, you may not always agree with what Mr. does, what Mr. Coonan does, what Mr. O'Brien does, but I tell you, you can get behind them. You know the best thing for your children is that even if you need to have a robust discussion with their teacher, if you're positive about these guys when they're around, mate, the respect will change. Your community will change. I love that when we were in Millmerran, I got to speak to every boy from year 5 to 10 whose parent would sign the permission note. I tell you, there's some change. We got to challenge their thinking. We got to speak about positive masculinity. We got to speak about respect. I tell you, that is fantastic. Get behind top blokes. Find out how you can sponsor them to be in Pittsworth Primary, because primary schools do not get a great deal of wellness funding. It can come from your community. Okay, so that's really what I want to leave you with. The other one is the Life Care Community Shop. I don't know if all of you know, but Brett Dolly runs a Life Care Community Shop which provides food at a great rate, at a discount for people who are struggling and vulnerable. Get behind that. Get behind that. Very good. But thank you very much for having me this morning. I really appreciate this time. And I guess, do I invite Jeff up now?
That'll do.
Our man.
No, we've got raffle draws first.
Oh, raffle draws first. Sorry. All right, Jeff. The girl's going to come and do it. But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. Darby, beautiful singing, my friend. Well done. I didn't dare try and sing that chorus. However, the song that was chosen actually fits in beautifully with what Cole had to say, what all the speakers in fact have had to say today, and that is that we all have that fight in us. We all have that heart to give to someone else, and we all have that match that can light, that can make an explosion, that can help someone else. Cole spoke about his almost explosion as a youngster, which created a very thin hairline. But look, today's been extra special, and can I thank my fellow councillors for being here today. Thank you very much indeed to Edwina, to Kerry, to Trevor and to Tim. Thanks very much for being here this morning. It's my great privilege. It's my great privilege to represent all of you with my fellow councillors at many different things, but I have to say that the prayer breakfasts are always something that actually gives you that grounding to know how fortunate we are to live where we live. Yeah. It seriously is, and today to have schools represented, the principals here, the chappies here, the future here. Yeah. The future is in this room, and Cole, your presentation today was absolutely sensational. It really was. I have to say, you certainly did keep our videographer very hectic. David, I'll try and stay as close as I can to the lecture for you. We kept him working overtime, Cole, and David, part of the committee, volunteering his time, and a new resident to the region, David. So welcome to you, and thank you for getting so actively involved. There are a few people I would like to thank, and first and foremost, can we particularly thank Tanika and Lily for coming today. Year 9 students, so thank you to them. To the state school students for singing the national anthem so beautifully. Carol, for your opening remarks, and I absolutely concur with you. In fact, I think politicians should be the last ones to be welcomed at any event. I seriously do. Because it's us that just turn up and and are the beneficiaries of so many people. So I totally concur with you, Carol, and perhaps our councillors, I'm sure they do agree with that as well. So thank you very much to the state schools for your presentation today as well. But to all of the sponsors that are listed on the program, can I encourage you, as you always do, to avail yourselves of their services wherever you possibly can. To the Pittsworth Sentinel for being here today, thank you very much indeed for promoting this event on the lead up, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of photos that will be able to promote what's happened here this morning as well. But to the committee themselves, very much appreciate all the efforts. Jason, to you and the very small but dedicated and committed group of Pittsworth Prayer Breakfast Committee, can we give them a collective round of applause? Pittsworth Association of Ministers, and for your words of prayer at the start to Brent and Charlie, thank you very much as well. Great messages, and there is a genuine theme that's come through the prayer breakfast this morning. Charlie, thank you for the prayer this morning. I particularly thank you praying for your leaders. We all need prayer every day, and I'm sure my colleagues appreciated that today as well, so thank you very much. Today has been extra special for a variety of reasons. But Nicole, just to pick up a few things that you said, I mentioned about the lighting up of the hand and the disclaimer, and I appreciate that for the youngsters in the room, and even I have to say I was quite intrigued because I've seen magicians do that. I wondered how they did it, and now we know. But to know that this morning we've also learned how to maim an elephant, I think that's something that's one of those random thoughts I'm sure some of us have thought about. And today we've had that opportunity. But on a more serious note, to know and understand that it takes some 6 different services, to get someone out of homelessness. 6 different services. We often think it's just one strain, but there's many different factors that can mean that someone is homeless. And Cole, your message there was very strong indeed. And I do want to also acknowledge you, not only for all of those things, but for your work at Winter Shelter, because we saw it firsthand, your involvement with those are the clients, as we call them, the guests, and those volunteers. Cole, thank you very much for all of that and all that you do. But I also wanted to acknowledge Elijah this morning. Now, Elijah is Cole's. He's very surprised I've mentioned his name. Elijah is year 8 at Highlands College, and has a very warm heart, very similar to his father and mother. He grows up in a wonderful environment, and many of us in this room have that privilege. But there's some of our children that don't, and it's where the chappies particularly come into play. And so this morning we're raising funds for the chappies, for Top Blokes, and for Canteen. So the chappies this morning, can I just ask you to stand up for a moment so we can give you the due accolation that you deserve. Brooke had to leave. Would you like to stand here? Okay. So thank you very much, Ross and Stephen and Brooke. And I hadn't had the opportunity to meet Sarah as well. Sarah's also a chappie in this area. But to you, that's you're taking on a responsibility that sadly many families don't have the time to do. That's a reality. That's the fact of life today. It is a challenge, as are the school principals and the teachers. It's something that teachers and principals never signed up for, but they find themselves doing, such as the society we are in. And this is why Cole's challenge today, that within this room we have solutions, is so very true. So very true. So thank you all. We are talking to the converted here today, but it's up for each of us to do what we can to support our teachers, support our chappies, support our principals, to make sure that they continue to do the fine work that they do. So to the teachers, the headmasters, the principals, thank you very much for what you're doing to make sure that you're giving all of the youngsters, the future leaders, and I have to say, I've listened to many random thoughts of children these days, and there's some good solutions to some of today's problems. coming from the youngsters. We should never forget that if we, as adults, as leaders, are trying to find solutions for people, we should talk to the people that will have the answers to the solutions. And in this case, it's the children. So to all of you, thank you very much indeed. So again, to everyone who's been involved, the Scouts cooking up a storm, to the students who were serving, to everyone who's played an active role in bringing together today, wholeheartedly thank you. I very much appreciate it. And I want to close just with a quote that I think ties in everything we've spoken about and Cole's challenge today to all of us. It's a pretty well-known quote. Before I do that though, Heather with the honey, it wasn't mentioned during the raffles. That honey, not only do you get to have the honey, you get to keep the jar, but you also get a photo with the mayor as well. That'll happen at the conclusion of today. All right. So I'll finish with a quote, a very well-known quote, and a quote that I think draws all the strings together of this morning. It's a quote from Margaret Mead, and it talks about, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has." So it's up to us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. I'm just going to go a little bit off script. One thing that I know the look of horror on everybody's faces when I say that, and if you know, for those that know me even more than others, the look of horror gets even worse. So I just want to, I suppose, pass on my experiences with Top Blokes, and that was one thing. In schools we have a lot of support programs. We get emails every day in schools from programs or people trying to sell a program or the next thing, but there are very few programs where the students who are actually involved in it will come and advocate for a new cohort of people to be involved in it, and that was my experience at Highfields with Top Blokes, where the actual students involved came up and they would say, "I want to speak to the next or the Year 9s because I want them to understand how great that program is." So that's a real testament to the quality where the students who go through it actually see the value. And also I managed to get along to one end of program celebration where it was amazing to hear Year 9 boys, who we all know are extremely articulate, thoughtful, and really like to communicate and talk to their parents about how great their day was, what they've learned at school. So it wasn't a shock to me. Well, no, as we all know, that was a joke. I have to say lots of my jokes as well. Sometimes people just don't quite understand. That's a curse that I live with. Is that we're able to articulate the challenges that they experience as young people and could talk about that in front of their mothers, which, as well as someone who has a role in the school from authority. So I think the confidence that those young men gain from within themselves to be able to articulate that is a fantastic testimony to that program. So thanks, Cole, for that. The other thing that I really took away from today is the challenge that we all have. Sometimes we think solving a problem requires something huge or something that's monumental. But every day I am absolutely blessed to be able to work with young people. My wife is a prep teacher, and you would not get me in front of a prep classroom to save yourself. But I'm very lucky to work with 12 to 18-year-olds these days. And what I learn each and every day from the young people in our community, you couldn't read from a book. Some of that's good, some of that's not so good, but also every day making that connection and that forming a relationship with other people is a fantastic way to move forward and to work on solving the problems that we have. The other thing is that I know it's no surprise that as an educator that it's every day is an opportunity to learn something new. My challenge now is I learn how to take down an elephant, but but now I have to learn how to be a better shot because I still think the elephant holds a much better chance than I do. And it's always nice to be affirmed is that something I think we've all secretly known is that bald people are more attractive than everybody else. I appreciate your thanks that you got to spend the morning with Paul and I won't point out anybody else who might be follically challenged, but you are more than welcome. So thank you very much as we wrap up this morning, obviously, to our Mayor and our councillors and invited guests. I do in particular want to acknowledge the organising committee. Putting on an event such as this doesn't just happen overnight, so thank you very much. And particularly acknowledge the sponsors that you'll be able to see in the program there. And don't forget on the way out, the St Stephen's School students, the Mount Tyson school students made those bookmarks, so you're more than welcome to take those with you.